The old house stood on the edge of town, a silent sentinel watching over the years as they passed by. Its dark silhouette was a familiar yet foreboding sight to the townsfolk, who often whispered tales of its haunted past. A Victorian mansion shrouded in overgrown ivy and whispering secrets, it seemed to breathe with a life of its own. The ivy, like nature's fingers, clung to the walls, hiding the stories etched into the stone. It was a place of shadows even in daylight, where the sun's rays struggled to penetrate the gloom. The rooms were filled with dark corners and hidden nooks, each one a potential hiding place for the unknown. The air hung heavy with the weight of past memories, thick with the scent of old wood and forgotten dreams. Every piece of furniture, every artifact seemed to hold a story waiting to be told, memories that now echoed with a new horror, as if the house itself was trying to warn those who dared to enter. To whisper, the floors creaked with unseen footsteps. Inside, the air was thick with the metallic scent of blood, a stark contrast to the musty smell of age. The crimson stains told a tale of violence, a story that had yet to be fully uncovered. Dust motes danced in the single beam of moonlight, cutting through a gap in the curtains, like tiny spirits caught in a ghostly waltz. The moonlight cast eerie shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. The silence was broken only by the ticking of an antique clock, a sound that seemed to grow louder with each passing second. It was a reminder of time's relentless march, indifferent to the tragedies it witnessed. A clock that had counted down the final minutes of a life, its hands now frozen in a moment of despair. The timepiece stood as a silent witness to the events that had unfolded, its face reflecting the sorrow of a life cut short. Coco, a scarlet macaw, perched silently in his cage. His vibrant feathers glistened under the dim light, a stark contrast to the somber atmosphere of the room. He was an unnoticed witness to the darkness that had unfolded in his owner's home. The once lively house was now a scene of chaos and despair. His bright plumage and playful nature hid a sharp mind, always observing, always listening. Coco's keen eyes missed nothing, and his memory was as vivid as his feathers. He had seen it all, the struggle, the desperate fight for survival that had taken place right before his eyes, the glint of the blade. It had flashed menacingly in the dim light, a harbinger of the violence that was to come. The lifeless eyes staring into nothingness. They were once full of life and laughter, now reduced to a haunting memory. Coco's heart pounded in his feathered chest. The terror of that night had imprinted itself deeply in his mind. He mimicked the rasping breaths of his owner, the heavy footsteps of the intruder. Each sound he repeated was a fragment of the horrific event, each sound a piece of the puzzle that he would one day have to reveal. The investigators had no idea that the key to solving the mystery was right there in Coco's cage. He was the only one who knew the truth, the only one who had seen and heard everything. He was the only witness, the silent observer who held the secrets of that fateful night within his colourful plumage. Professor Elmwood, a renowned ornithologist, had been alone that night. Lost in the world of birdsong recordings, he hadn't heard the intruder, hadn't seen the shadow slip through the unlocked window. He had felt the sharp, cold steel first. A gasp escaped his lips, the sound swallowed by the heavy silence of the house. He struggled, a futile attempt against a force much stronger. Then, silence. The professor slumped over his desk, his lifeblood staining the research papers that were his passion. Days turned into weeks. The investigation ran cold. Leads that once seemed promising faded into dead ends, and the detectives found themselves grasping at straws. Coco watched as strangers came and went, their faces etched with suspicion and grief. The house, once filled with laughter, now echoed with whispers and hushed conversations. He yearned to tell them what he knew, Every night the memories of that fateful evening replayed in his mind, vivid and haunting, to scream the words that haunted his dreams, the sounds of struggle, the chilling voice of the intruder, all of it was etched in his memory. One day a gruff detective lingered by his cage. His eyes, weary from countless sleepless nights, seemed to search for answers in Coco's gaze. Coco, in a moment of desperate inspiration, mimicked the intruder's voice. The words came out clear and chilling, as if the intruder himself was in the room. "Don't struggle, old man," he rasped, his voice uncannily accurate. The room fell silent, the weight of the revelation hanging in the air. The detective froze, his eyes widening in shock. Could it be that this bird held the missing piece of the puzzle? Could this bird hold the key to solving the case? The detective's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of the mystery. Coco's revelation was a breakthrough, a glimmer of hope in a case that had seemed hopeless. Section 5. Whispers of Justice. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Never before had a parrot been called to the stand as a witness. The defense attorneys scoffed, calling it a circus act. But the prosecution held firm. Coco was their only hope. Coco, perched on a stand beside the witness box, felt the weight of everyone's gaze. He looked at the accused, a man whose greed had led him to murder. Then, clear and strong, he began to speak. Section 6. The Trial of Truth. "Don't struggle, old man," Coco rasped, his voice echoing in the silent courtroom. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. The accused shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting nervously. Coco continued, mimicking the sounds of the struggle, the thud of the body hitting the floor. He repeated phrases he had overheard the intruder utter, details only the killer could have known. The courtroom fell silent, captivated by the bird's testimony. The evidence was clear. Coco, the silent observer, had spoken. Section 7. Feathers of Fury. The jury's verdict was swift and unanimous: guilty. The courtroom erupted in a frenzy of emotions: relief, disbelief, and a sense of awe for the feathered witness who had cracked the case. For Coco, it was a victory tinged with sadness. He had avenged his owner's death, but at the cost of reliving that horrific night. He had spoken not with words, but with the echoes of a crime that should never have happened. Section 8. A Verdict Remembered. The case of the Parrot Witness became a legend, a testament to the extraordinary abilities of animals and the bonds they share with humans. Coco, the unlikely hero, lived out his days in peace, a constant reminder that even in the darkest corners there is always a glimmer of hope. His story became a symbol of justice served, a reminder that sometimes the quietest observers have the loudest voices.